And hello, everyone from North America and across the globe. I am joined here today by a great group of panelists spread across the family office, venture capital, and private equity sectors. The global markets are struggling to regain its footing from the terrible effects of COVID-19. There may be some in the audience today who may have lost a loved one from this terrible virus, and my heart goes out to you. But there are some good news on vaccine progress, and we're thinking economic activity for the second half of 2021 will be strong if there's a vaccine or vaccines that get approved here. The panel today will discuss their strategy in portfolio management, technology investing, and the role of family offices in venture capital in helping to drive future global growth. I won't go in depth with the panelists' bio as they're available on the Kiwi website, but I'm joined today by Greg Dyer, Managing Director of Obear Capital LLC, Michael Karras, partner of Karras Partners Inc., Kenneth Kilroy, partner at Brightstar Capital Partners, Michael Raymer, board member and chief strategy officer at Angel MD, and John White, Managing Director and CEO of Cardinal System Ventures Holdings LLC. And just a quick note for the audience today, if you have any questions or want to join the conversation, please join us on Twitter using the hashtag KiwiRSM. That's KiwiRSM, KIWIRSM, and our team will be monitoring that feed. Without further ado, let's begin. So my first question is going to be to Ken Kilroy here. Ken, prior to your time at Brightstar, you led a very large family office in California for a number of years. And that office held a number of investments across a number of industries. And, just thinking about at the 30,000-foot view, how has the current environment changed the way family offices operate and invest? And on top of that, Ken, knowing that a large proportion of our audience here are a bunch of startups, what are 3 things startups can do to pitch better in this COVID-19 environment? Please, Ken.
So to answer your first question, I was with Marvin Davis for 24 years, and we owned companies like 20th Century Fox Film, Pebble Beach, Aspen, Fox Plaza, Beverly Hills Hotel. But we were also very active in venture investing for quite some time. Developing deal flow was always a time-consuming process, as everybody on this call knows. But family offices they've always loved to get in front of as many opportunities as possible, but at the same time protecting their own privacy. So the COVID-19 go-to format that we're on today does just that. It protects people's privacy, but allows people to connect and for people to hear the ideas of others. In the past 8 months, I've been on hundreds of Zoom calls and equivalent calls with family offices and both VC investors as well as VC opportunities. And of course, what I will concentrate more on today is upper middle market kind of opportunities. But I've been involved in the entire range of opportunities over these COVID-related months. I've been on in more recent years, I've been more active, of course, in private equity and significant privately held operating businesses. But the investigative process and trying to get the deal flow is a very similar process. The new normal is perfect for family offices to be informed about venture capital deals and venture capitalists, and to middle market businesses while still maintaining their privacy. And they have sourced opportunities they wish to explore in that way. So I think it's been a great thing for both entrepreneurs that have venture capital opportunities and for family offices that are here today. To answer your second question, what 3 things startups can do to pitch better in this COVID-19 environment, the most important commodity to a startup other than cash is time. The new methods for reaching investors no longer requires the time commitment of getting on a plane to participate on a panel in real time, or making a pitch to somebody, a person-to-person methodology. With that in mind, a startup might consider the following: continue to push to get the leading platforms, to get on the leading platforms, today for funding from VC investors. And KiwiTech, of course, gave us a great example of how massive their reach is. There are a number. The second thing I'd say is that there are a number of very well-connected family office platforms that are skilled at connecting their family office communities with quality investment opportunities. So those platforms, getting on them is critical. The motivation for those family office platforms is solely to be helpful to the family office clients rather than profiting from the referral. So it's a very efficient way to if you can connect to those family office platforms, to get to referrals for both the venture capitalists and the entrepreneurs. And I'd say the third thing is consider reaching out to specialized venture capitalists like Michael Raymer that's on the call today and Angel MD. Michael Raymer at Angel MD and in the medical VC world and the entertainment tech areas like Michael Karras and Greg Dyra. And in addition, as we listen to John White today, he's anybody involved in tech hybrid situations, he's the perfect kind of person to be getting connected with.
Ken, thanks for those thoughts. And let's dig a little bit deeper in that family office vertical there. And Michael Karras, you've been running a family office for a very, very long time that's been focused on real estate and technology. And knowing that we're at a technology conference right now, how does your family think about investing in technology? And just a follow up on that, does your family get really hands-on when they invest in startups? And if you have any examples currently or in the past that would be helpful for the audience to understand, appreciate your insights on that, Michael.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. We've been a family business for 40 to 50 years. And growing up in a family with multiple businesses and seeing all the shit that goes on is probably the highest calling to mankind. I mean, we've seen everything growing up through public school, right through college. We see investors constantly chasing tech startups. Well, I can tell you, dogs chase cars doesn't mean they can drive. Doesn't mean the tech startup works. We found the number one reason that startups fail is they just run out of cash. Great idea, good entrepreneurs, but they just run out of money. The industry statistics from idea to seed, about only 2 to 3% survive. Therefore, you've got 97% chance of failure at the idea to seed stage. Now, who wants to sign up for that deal? I never met a revenue line I didn't like. Some of these companies, they show you their presentation, then they ask you if you want to marry them. Well, now you think back, when you went on your first date, did you bring the ring to dinner and propose? There needs to be a little more relationship built before investing in companies. We never fall in love with tech companies. Why? Because we're not marrying them, we're simply dating them. And we also watch out for what we call the living dead. Startups that are still living, taking investor cash, but they're really dead. We like to talk to customers, to the company's customers, if we are going to invest. We want to see that the customers love the product. They're really attached to the product. We asked the founders, is there any other product that you like besides what you're doing? To see what their reaction is. We also look for the product to have charisma. It's got to have just real appeal. Then we make small bets as the company grows. We start very small. Once the company starts flourishing and taking off, we increase our bets 10, sometimes 20 times. The best people we've really associated ourselves are experienced business people in technology. These fellows and these girls and guys have, they've walked the valley of death in previous startups. They know what it's like. They've learned how to work with team members, build an enterprise, and hire good people and figure out who to partner with. Sometimes we're hands-on, but if all you want is our $20, then we're not strategic to the venture. We want to see how we can bring value to the enterprise using our relationship and political capital, especially to the revenue line, and enhance the ramp. That way, we too can mitigate the investment risk going forward. Jason, I'll give you an example of one of our previous investments that we've got more hands-on on. We were approached to invest in a piece of hardware that you attach to your iPhone or iPad, and it takes you into the gaming world. This is several years ago. And now you could game on the fly. You don't have to be attached to wires and a big box in the living room. The company's called GameVice. And they approached us. We did the initial diligence on. We spent quite a bit of time dealing with the founders and built a relationship. And that took several months. But that led to us being the lead investor, and we put in $1 million. What they couldn't get to, they needed sales. And before we invested the $1 million, we identified various revenue sources in Europe and the Middle East that we knew we could bring to the table immediately. So going into the deal, we reduced our risk before cutting a check. They also wanted to get into the Apple Store system, and they couldn't. They tried for a year, they couldn't. So we reached out to our relationship capital, and it happened to be a manufacturer that produces batteries over in Asia. And we leveraged his relationship with Apple because he was supplying Apple, still is. And we said, can you get us an audience inside? Can you have this technology, present this technology? And that came about. And then probably 6-8 months later, we were in all the Apple stores worldwide. That's kind of an example of how strategic investors can help the tech company. That $20 is worth more than other $20. And just kind of finishing off here, we've also learned that if everything else fails, we T-map it. Throw money at problem. T-map.
Michael, that's very fascinating. And you know what? Let's continue on that discussion on technology. And I'm going to bring in Greg with his healthcare background here. And based on your investing history and working with family offices and your ongoing research, are you focused on opportunities or niches due to COVID-19, such as health tech, fintech, virtual solutions? And on top of that, if you have any examples you can share with the audience as well, like Michael had done previously, we'd appreciate that.
Sure. Looking at all those areas, except for the virtual space, that's been outside of my swinging range, and it's also been not something that we've gotten strong deal flow in. We have gotten good deal flow in telehealth and e-commerce, and one name that I can speak in detail about is a biotech company that has some unique technologies that it's been building over 10 years. And, it was very difficult to finish due diligence during COVID, but thank goodness that there was a small group of families that had started the diligence last August. And we had finished our work by the earlier part of 2020, but COVID had stopped us from getting out into the field once again. We had gone to the field with scientific experts. But you had asked a question earlier about what does it take to attract capital, and we needed to finish, our confidence in the management team's character and their full complement of capabilities. We needed to make sure that they had even though they had been developing the technology for 10 years, we needed to get evidence that they had market fit in their addressable markets. And then we also wanted to make sure that the valuation was kind of commercially reasonable versus the opportunity set. So, we dug in. We had already met the team, hadn't met the board members, but did, a good deal of confidence building was in knowing that these were senior C-suite executives from Amgen, Genentech, Eli Lilly. So we knew that the management team was keeping good company with that kind of talent. We also bolstered our 2019 site visits with scientific experts. We took it to new third-party scientific consultants, and luckily found a consultant that had a very specific expertise in what we were looking for. So that accelerated our process. But we're also looking for, the alignment of that management team. They were demonstrating to us that they could meet milestones, even though they started commercializing this decade of research. They had already been commercializing and meeting those milestones for the previous 2 years. They had also shown an ability to run a good governance process. The boards were very well documented. You could see the decisions and the deliberations from meeting to meeting. We had a previous 5-year relationship with the lead investor, which was a venture capital firm, and we were able to hear more about the details there from them. But we watched over that timeline. We could see when sophisticated local investors were validating the thesis as well. But one of the things that really won the day was we like to see a company that's positioned with multiple ways of winning over both the near and the intermediate term. And in this case, we think that we found a 4-legged chair with each of those legs providing a really good business opportunity. So we think we've made one investment. We're going to see this biotechnology platform company lower the cost. So they're going to deliver faster, better, cheaper, next generation biologics. When they've worked through that opportunity, some of their chemistry can be brought to the industrial chemicals business to bring faster, better, cheaper there. When they're done there, they can roll it out into food tech and ag tech. And so we see this as potentially, a multi-decade opportunity in each of these different potential exits.
Yeah, thanks for that, Greg. COVID-19 has really changed the game for all industries in general, and just investors as well as startups have to really think not just the here and now, but the future. And your insights in that ag tech and food tech are very, very crucial. And continue on discussion on healthcare, because a good chunk of our audience is focused on that space. Michael, Angel MD is doing some amazing things, and I'm assuming over the course of your career, you've witnessed the speed of technology in just the healthcare industry, and we're seeing it within our own client base here at RSM. Angel MD came up with, innovate the industry with this network platform that it operates, and your website clearly describes what it does. And just from our discussions earlier, it sounds like you have a couple of VC funds launching here. So For you personally, or my question for you, Michael, is how has COVID-19 changed the way you looked at investing in companies? And do you have any examples of the types of early stage companies that have a good story that interested you or maybe possibly you guys invested in? So Michael, on to you.
Well, thanks very much, Jason. Angel MD is an online platform connecting physician experts with healthcare startups to investors. And so we have 15,000 physician experts on the platform that can be used to evaluate all the 3,000 companies we have on the platform with deal flow. And then we tap into the investor community to support either our startup or ongoing growth fund. From a COVID-19 perspective, our platform's perfect. It's already virtual. So the fact that we have physicians that can score the companies, we're able to separate those companies that are not particularly good clinical ideas, because we believe in the wisdom of the crowd and tapping into the expertise of physicians. Almost 80% of the healthcare spend in the US runs through the hands of a physician, whether on a keyboard or on a pen. And so we want to really, capture their feedback relative to clinical fit, reimbursement. Would they buy it in their practice, in their hospital, in their multi-specialty group? With that as a platform, how has COVID changed our approach? Well, we're virtual already. So in some respects, it's been pretty easy for us to continue operating in the COVID environment. From a product standpoint, we're pretty interested in the virtual care space. And you'd look no further than the merger/acquisition of Livongo and diabetes management for $18 billion by Teladoc. Our belief is there'll be a number of specialty virtual care companies that'll be rolled up into the top 5 or 6 companies that did this amazing land grab during COVID for virtual care. So we have 3 companies right now on our platform that we're tracking very closely, doing due diligence on, that are in segments that are focused in specialties like oncology, like skilled nursing, et cetera, where they bring expertise and deep understanding and will be positioned well for an acquisition by one of the large telemedicine companies. At the same time, we've been pretty cautious about looking at anyone that has a diagnostic or therapeutic directly targeted to COVID. Understandably, there's a significant pool of capital that's chasing that right now. There is one interesting company that we've identified, and it's a patch that you can wear that turns a different color as soon as you have been able to generate the antibodies inside of your body. So this would be really cool for someone that is asymptomatic and walking around knowing that that the antibodies are already in place for them. I would say the other one is we had a company we had invested in that had a needleless injection platform. It was really focused on the rest of world market. So it was like the old style vaccines as they were delivered before via air. And there were a lot of issues. The FDA shut down those products. This company innovated, created a needleless injection platform used globally in a lot of markets. You can vaccine 3 times the number of people per hour that you normally can with the traditional vaccine with using half the material. So that was an investment we had already made. That company began to work with a number of the vaccine companies in the COVID-19 space. With that all said, you still want to invest in things that are going to transform healthcare. I'll give you 3 quick examples. Working with a company now that has cold cap therapy that allows a chemotherapy patient not to lose their hair during their treatment. And it's based upon a rental model. The CEO is a rock star. She's a Stanford MBA, tech entrepreneur. She's a breast cancer survivor. So she really literally pivoted from the tech world to building this cold cap therapy company. What's interesting, she just didn't have enough healthcare expertise. So we were able to attach her to the experts on our network to grow that. Have a friend of mine involved with a portable MRI company, basically delivering a MRI to the bedside in a hospital or really any kind of clinical setting. If any of you have ever been to an MRI, you get in that big tube, you can't have metal in your pocket. it's a lead-lined room. It's about a $3 or $4 million forklift drop into a hospital. This is a device you can roll around the hallways in a hospital, plug into a normal bedside outlet. And what's amazing about it is that mom can stand there and hold the pediatric child's hand while they're getting an MRI. That would have never been possible before. So that touches on an area that we're very keen about, which is artificial intelligence. So if you look at MRI technology, and I was at GE for a number of years, we were always about how can you get a bigger magnet? These guys just completely looked at the problem upside down and said, how can you use technology to eliminate the noise in the signal and reduce the size and need for large magnets? And so they have a plethora of IP protection. So, we still see, there's opportunities in COVID, but at the same time, healthcare is a big marketplace, and be careful not to get distracted by focusing just on something that's COVID related.
Michael, great thoughts. I feel like every time I go see my doctor, there's always something new out there, whether it's related to diabetes or right now I have a monitor inside of me tracking my heart rate. It's unbelievable. The technology has evolved over time. So talking about technology, and John, I'm going to bring you into the conversation right now. And your biography is amazing. And one of the things I caught on was this: you pioneered a concept called tech hybrid, right, during the course of your career as a venture capital investor. And I'm assuming a lot of the audience, can you explain to the audience what that means and provide some examples of how you really applied that over the course of your career in business? And then in addition, on top of that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what emerging technologies really excite you right now.
Sure. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to the other panelists and to all our guests. Name is John White, and I work for Cardinal System Venture Holdings, which is a subsidiary of a family office, Cardinal System Holdings. Early on in my career, while working with the family office, we quickly realized that because we invest in what would be estimated to be sort of mainline businesses, traditional brick and mortar businesses that operate in the supply chain, distribution, manufacturing space, high value chain logistics, heavy and light equipment, and so forth, that we needed to be very, very cognizant of the fact that these were typically 100-year-old businesses with 100-year-old processes. And we wanted to ensure that we were doing everything that we can in our ownership to be innovative, to be entrepreneurial, and to ensure that we are future-proofing these businesses for the long term. And so it is important for us to think about holistically, how do we create synergy between these very traditional business lines and innovation that takes place in the form of technology. And so I set out about 2.5 years ago to start and now run Cardinal System Venture Holdings, which houses this approach that I've coined a tech hybrid investment model. And what tech hybrid investment model means is it's the combination of traditional mainline businesses, brick and mortar businesses, with very robust technology partnerships and technology investments, focusing on 3 areas. One is the machines of the future. How do you invest in, how do you own, how do you better enable and prop up the machines of the future? The data of the future, all right? How do you have ownership of companies that have access to the data of the future? How are you partnering with technology partnership to access data? How are you manipulating that data and utilizing that data within your organization? And 3, ensuring that you have the right investments, partnership, know-how, operational excellence around the technology of the future. And with that, what we want to do with the tech hybrid approach is to ensure that you are creating a closed loop ecosystem around your brick and mortar investments and around your technology innovation and your technology investments, such that you're literally creating a lifeline ecosystem within your operation to ensure that anything that you invest in on the technology side can benefit your brick and mortar investments, and your brick and mortar investments can benefit your technology investments, the data, the machines that you're invested in, and so forth. So how does this take place? we have decided to go out and invest in venture capital firms from around the country. We've brokered partnerships with accelerators and incubators from around the country and around the world. We actually have a partnership now in Israel. We've decided to use our brick and mortar assets as testing grounds for the best startups, best thought leaders, and so forth that are within our ecosystem to help them along the way. What's a clear example of this? One would be we are invested in a fund-to-fund called Lumen Capital, which has an investment in a firm called Ulu Ventures. Ulu Ventures decided to invest in a company called Blue Note, which is essentially a data analytics and marketing company. That company was then acquired by one of the corporations that we own a significant asset in, which is John Deere. We're one of the largest John Deere franchise holders in the country. So if you think about John Deere, and our partnership is in large and small ag, right? Utilizing a company that we have invested in a number of different ways, right? And to think about sort of data and analytics from this sort of concept wheel. There are other examples of how best to enable this with our startups, with our accelerators, and so forth. But essentially, the tech hybrid approach is saying, what assets do you have? How do you utilize storage optimization, network optimization? How are you ensuring that everything within the ecosystem that you control is being maximized and materialized at all times? Stretching $1 to the ultimate max and figuring out how to slice it as many ways as you possibly can to make more and more dollars based on that $1. As far as your question around what am I looking forward to in the future, I really am excited about the new emerging markets around supply chain and distribution. What will be allowed to take place around artificial intelligence, automated driving, machine learning, and so forth. I think there's going to be a lot that takes place, obviously, around healthcare and the data that's centered around healthcare. And what I also am very excited about is the future of agriculture and where these companies like John Deere, Caterpillar, and so forth will create the next iterations of what will be the Teslas of equipment, and what type of equipment will be utilized by farmers and so forth going forward into the future, and what data those companies can utilize for themselves, but also what data can be derived from the customer to create more customer delight, more customer insight, and improve the yield by which takes place in agriculture, both in North America and around the world. Thank you.
No, thank you for that, John. And thank you for that insight as well. And you had touched upon, we're going to bring it back to the family office realm and investing. And some of the data that we're seeing here at RSM is that a lot more families are kind of bypassing alternative vehicles like private equity or hedge fund managers to make those deals, and family offices are now establishing investment divisions within their office to kind of do it themselves. And portfolio companies love this because there's a longer time horizon, and I call it patient capital, right? So I'm going to bring Ken and Michael Karras back into the mix, and with the few minutes that we have here, do you think direct investing does have legs going forward? And do you think there's ever a time where a family office will not use a private equity manager going forward to make those deals into portfolio companies? So Ken, John, and Michael Karras, if you guys could chime in here for a few minutes here and share your thoughts with the audience.
Well, I'll just say quickly that there's room for everything. There's room for everybody in that it's an enormous pool of capital that's seeking investment. As John was saying, you just have to be creative, and John has a very creative approach to historic businesses, but where does technology play in maximizing your investments in those businesses? And I think families are seeking, and even in these COVID times, they're willing to put enormous amounts of money at risk for the right kind of businesses. And I've been involved in a few of those that are that are very, very significant. And I think it's just a matter of getting in front of those investors, and a lot of times just through the family office kind of platforms. And this kind of a platform is a good way to do it.
What
Michael?
we've seen is the direct investment model is absolutely red hot. Families want to be doing direct investment themselves. What we've learned over the years is we like to partner with VCs on an exit. So if we're invested in a private company and it's ready to be taken to market, we're really not good at it. We don't have the latest information in marketing. We don't know how to really build on a divestiture. So we look for strategic VCs. We'd like to partner with them, bring them in, and have them create the sale process, and they can, enjoy some of the lift as well. So we really like that part of the VC model on an exit. We're not crazy about giving money into funds for 5 or 7 or 10 years. We've invested always with a 3-year horizon, 4-year horizon. And I can tell you, it's never worked. It's always been 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So this 3 to 4 year stuff is just, fantasy. There's about 4 million angel investors in America. 300,000 of them have invested in the past 2 years. Typical angel investor, $10,000. They aggregate themselves to maybe 350,000 on a going in investment to start the company. A thing I can share with founders, whenever we meet with founders, all they want to do is talk about their invention or their widget or their software, and they go on and on about it, but we really don't want an education in the software. We're investors. We come up with an investor hat onto the table, and we're saying, okay, how much do you need? And what possibly can our return be on this? And what's the risk? So don't spend 90% of the time telling us what the invention is. Let's focus on just what's inside our box and what really works for us. And to the founders, in our experience, your first target should be building relationship with your potential capital source. But remember, it's not just about them, the founders. You interview the capital. When you're sitting with them, you ask them questions. And at the end of the day, you ask yourself, do I want to partner with this group or this capital? I'll finish off here with investors. Investors know your worth. You must find the courage to leave the table if respect is no longer being served.
Thank you, Michael. And John, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think it's important for particularly family offices to have an investment thesis and to really to circulate that thesis and have agreement around the table on what that thesis is. Secondarily, I think it's equally important to have a group of advisors that the family can truly depend on, that sit outside the family structure, that can really provide a level of expertise and innovation for them. I would say that thirdly, when that is done, to really take an assessment of what the market is and what the market will be, and then internally to take a focus on what you truly want as far as a strategic plan for the family and for the operation, and how you ultimately get there based on those sort of three things. And those will be the things that I would sort of add. The last piece is that, and this is to Michael's point, everything is about partnership. And so entrepreneurs should be thinking about, when they engage investors, what does this mean for the investor? What does this mean for the family office, whoever they're talking to? And secondarily, family office and investors should always be thinking about adding value. How do you add value to the folks that you're partnering with, investing in, advising, so on and so forth. So great comments, I thought, by both Michael and Kenneth, and thank you for the question, Jason.
Thank you, guys. So we got about 2 to 3 minutes left here, guys, and I just want to have throw out a closing question here. If you guys could spend 30 seconds or less on this final question I have for each one of you is, what is the best advice that you can give to a young company that's currently in our audience right now, seeking capital from a venture capital, or from a VC, or from a family office? Greg, do you want to start this off, and we'll go from there?
Sure. I mentioned some of them in my previous example, but it's really important to share those proof statements of the best-in-class board, your best-in-class team. Why are those people there? You also want to demonstrate on a regular basis that you're aligned with investors and you have a history of aligning with investors. Showcase those things in your past where you've been able to demonstrate that. And then position your company to have multiple ways of winning, both in the near term and the long term. It's always better to, as Michael Karras was talking about, things don't go the way that you're originally planning, and it's good to have those other legs of the stool to lean on. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. Michael Raymer?
I always encourage startups to start at the exit and work their way backwards. And I see some companies that, are on our network, but I look at the company and I don't see any possible exit for the company. This is particularly true in digital health. You got to be extremely careful because of the concentration of power in Epic, Cerner, Meditech, Allscripts, Athena Health, etc. And so that's one thing. At least I want to provide a unique perspective. We always say start at the exit and work your way backwards. We also like the concept of early exits. So particularly in the therapeutic space, we do not want to invest in a therapeutic where the entrepreneur believes they're going to go through all the way through phase 3 and take the product to the market. We want them to be motivated around getting past 1A, 1B and getting that product sold to big pharma.
Michael Karras?
Well, I'll start with pro formas. I mean, when we look at pro formas and we see a 5-year pro forma, we got to look at the group presenting and saying, okay, who's the clairvoyant that can predict 5 years here? I mean, that's just so difficult with startups. If you can do just 12 months, 18 months, that's good enough. Don't try to, go out years, and that just doesn't work. And put yourself a good team together, and try to report to your investors on a monthly basis, even if it's one line. Keep them involved because you're going to need them. There's some of the best investments that we've done have been in tech companies that have been able to monetize themselves or get into revenue within 120 days, 6 months. And, they sell, they look for an exit within, a year or two. And they're very simple, not a lot of moving parts. And we know that when the company presents to us and says, here's the plan, we know that's not the plan. It's going to pivot 100 times. So we're on for that. That's part of the DNA of, growing the companies. But really, it's the relationship that we want with the founders.
Fantastic. Ken Kilroy?
I'll just take the other side of what, in addition to what Michael just said, when you're talking about too long of a term and planning for 5 years from now or whatever, but also I've seen the other side of people not going after enough capital to get them to the 18 months that Michael mentioned, and worrying about giving up too much equity. Take all the money you can get, because when you're staring the 97% failure rate that in the face that Michael was talking about earlier today, it's great to have capital and as much as possible.
Thank you, Ken. And John, do you want to close us off here?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm gonna take a different approach, but appreciate the comments. One is ensure that you have some element of sort of white space in your schedule, where you're able to think, where you're able to contemplate, where you're able to plan. That should be just a part of the early incorporation of how you run your business, no matter if you're in a startup environment at all. Second thing is focus on yourself. You're a human. Focus on the humanity of yourself and of others. Treat your people right. The third thing is, and treat yourself right. The third thing is don't be greedy. If you're building something and you're building it with the team, make sure that everybody has an equal share and that they all feel like they want to get up and they want to come to work and they're all incentivized to do so. The fourth thing is, and this is to Michael's point and Ken's point around, 18-month plan, 12-month plan, and so on and so forth. Annual recurring revenue, cash. Those are the fundamentals of sort of building a great business. And so focus on how you get to annual recurring revenue and how you get cash in the bank and how you do things on the fundamentals of old school way of sort of running a great business.
All right, and with that, guys, I want to thank each one of you and your respective organizations for your time today and your insights. I know the audience really appreciated it. Greg Dyer, John White, Michael Raymer, Michael Karras, and Ken Kilroy. Thank you again very so much.